Hi, I'm Julian Baird, photographer and filmmaker from Devon, and welcome to Discovering Dartmoor. A few years ago, I asked myself the question, what do I know about Dartmoor? What makes this place so unique? And when I couldn't answer those questions, I made a commitment to myself to not only see more of Dartmoor, but to learn more about it. And from that commitment, Discovering Dartmoor was born. A 5-part video series where I explore and photograph 24 of Dartmoor's finest locations and speak to some of Dartmoor's most passionate ambassadors so I can find out for myself what makes Dartmoor so special. Coming up in this episode, I find some of Dartmoor's World War II defences, I learn what a boundary stone is, I visit one of Dartmoor's quarries, and I tell you a ghost story. But before all that, we're going to start this episode by meeting Dartmoor author and photographer Josephine Collingwood, who enjoyed a fabulous day walking to Great Links Tour and learning more about the geology of Dartmoor. Dartmoor National Park attracts visitors from across the globe who come and see the tours, the valleys, the woodlands, the wildlife and the nature. But Dartmoor is also home, a place where people live and work. And some of those people dedicate their lives to sharing their joy and passion for Dartmoor. And one of those people is author and photographer Josephine Collingwood, who I'm delighted to say is joining me today. Good morning, Josephine.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for asking. It's an honour and a privilege.
Thank you very much. I mean, we've picked a rare day, haven't we? It's absolutely beautiful.
A rare day and a rare set of days. I've never known a sort of strip of weather that's been quite as glorious as this.
I've even put my sunblock on to protect my white Scottish skin. You know.
Yeah.
We're going to go on a little walk today. We're going to go up to Great Links Tour, one of your favourite tours, which I'm sure,
yeah,
which you'll tell me all about. But you know, you, I guess personally and professionally, you wear a sort of number of Dartmoor hats. Can you tell me some of the things that you love about Dartmoor?
I mean, quite a few years ago, I started photographing Dartmoor, the tours, which led me to produce a book about it, and that sort of started a whole sort of career, if you like, on writing books about Dartmoor and photographing it and doing infographics and maps and so on. And whilst doing that, I was being a member of the Dartmoor Search and Rescue Team, which is part of Mountain Rescue England and Wales, which was very fulfilling, and that was a major part of my life for many, many years. I've recently done a book on the geology of Dartmoor because it's a passion of mine, and I just love wandering around, and you see the ground and you see sparkles in the ground, and just to have a closer look is brilliant, and I love sharing that. So I do talks about geology, which seem to be quite well received because people are really curious as to how these amazing tours were made. People say, "Oh, who built them?" It's like, no, hang on a minute. It's you know, they're entirely natural, and it's quite recent, and the shape of them and so on. So I love sharing Dartmoor with other people through talks and walks. I've just become a hill and moorland leader with a mountain training organisation, so I can now take people out and just share it.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm in safe hands today.
In safe hands,
I don't think we're going to get into trouble,
no,
are we?
We shouldn't, no.
It's not looking like we're going to get clouded in. So, it's good. I mean, we've got plenty to talk about then, really, don't we?
Hopefully.
So, shall we make our way up to Great Links
Tour?
And
I can't
we'll have a chat along the way. Come
right.
on then. Right, Josephine, we're taking a little rest as we approach the summit of Great Links Tour. But why have we stopped here?
Well, I spotted, so we've got the soft rushes here and the cotton grass.
Yep.
And that always shows it's a slightly wet, boggy area. But we were talking on our way up about how much there is to learn about Dartmoor.
Yes.
And how every day is a learning day. And I love that. And, you know, I've done a lot of research and I know quite a lot about Dartmoor, but there's always something new to learn. And last weekend, I was on a course and we were walking on Dartmoor, and someone showed me something that I never knew, and I think that's fantastic. So these soft rushes,
which you see all the time.
Which you see all the time.
Yeah.
They're the ones, they have flowers later, or earlier and later, but you get a freshish one, and you start peeling off the outside.
Yeah.
And what they used to use them for, these became the wicks of candles for the mines.
Oh, really?
For the miners. So you'd peel off the green. So I've got to thank Rachel for this, who showed it to me. Anyway, you get this sort of pithy core, and that becomes the wick of a candle.
Okay.
And what they used to do, the expression burning the candle at both ends, comes from getting a brighter candle, they'd get this pithy core, they'd sink it into the animal
Right.
fat, whatever they've got, and burn, with both ends, and it would be twice as bright but last half as long.
So nothing to do with turning the candle over halfway through?
No, it's
right.
all about putting one long pithy wick both ways, facing up and lighting it, and then that's burning the candle at both ends. But apparently you can eat them as well, but it doesn't taste.
Wouldn't recommend it?
No.
No, you'd have to be pretty desperate, wouldn't you?
You
That's absolutely fascinating.
But
that.
so all the candle wicks just growing out here.
See, now that I know this, I'll never be able to walk by these grasses again and without annoying my family to tell them, did you know?
Yeah,
Yes, Dad,
I
we
know,
know, we know.
The cotton grasses,
Yeah.
they used to use those to stuff mattresses and pillows and all sorts of stuff. So there's so much out here that can be used.
Well, that was well worth a stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I can breathe again now.
Shall we carry on? Come on then, let's go. What a fantastic morning that was with Josephine. Talk about every day is a school day. But we'll rejoin Josephine high up on Great Links Tor a bit later in this episode. Next up though, I'm going to do something I would never have done before I started Discovering Dartmoor, and that's visit one of Dartmoor's archaeological sites. As with so many of my Discovering Dartmoor journeys, this one starts with a beautiful view that I take some time to admire. My route to Grimspound starts on the Two Moors Way. It's a lovely walk with the heather in bloom and an old stone wall to follow. At the top of the hill, I turn right and head towards Hookney Tor. Arriving at Hookney Tor, I'm presented with a complete view of Grimspound, nestled in the rolling hills of Dartmoor. Before I head down to the Bronze Age site, I decide to wander off and find a bit of history that is a little bit more recent. You may be wondering why I've come to look at a stick in the ground. Well, this is a piece of history from World War II. So this isn't the only one. There's another one there just a short while away, and there's another one a bit further in the distance. But at the time of World War II, this whole area would have been covered in these poles. And this is because the British thought that this might make a good landing site for the Germans and their planes. So they put these poles all around the area, and then they run wire from pole to pole, sort of create a mesh. So you can imagine if a plane was going to come down and land, it would hit these wires and it will get shredded to bits. So these things are here to prevent the Germans landing in World War II. Absolutely fascinating little bit of history. Bizarre what you find in Dartmoor, but this is the whole point of this programme, was to learn about Dartmoor and some of its history as well. And right here is a bit of history. And now I've got an even better bit of history to go and look at. Welcome to Grimspound, probably one of Dartmoor's most iconic Bronze Age sites. Now I'm stood here just at the entrance where you can see the wall here. It's probably got a circumference, I believe, of about 500 yards, containing about 4 acres of land. Now historians have estimated that due to the width or the depth of the wall and its possible height, this was unlikely to be a defensive site. It was more likely to be used to house the humans and their animals, to keep them safe from whatever was out there, things like wolves, for example. But it is a big site, so why don't we go in and see what else we can find. If you've got humans and livestock to look after, the one thing you need is a good source of fresh water. And the good news for the people that lived here was that they had a stream run right through the middle here, down here below my feet. The unfortunate thing is today it's bone dry, so I can't really show you the water. It's not rained here for weeks, but I would imagine back in the day when it was a bit more damp, shall we say, there would have been plenty of water running through here, more than enough to feed the animals and the people that lived here. I'm sat in probably what was one of 24 huts, and the people that occupied these in about 1300 BC probably would have been farmers. Like I said, this was probably used to keep livestock. This particular hut looks like it's got a bit of a porchway here coming into the entranceway. It's quite small. Historians reckon these walls were probably about 4 foot high, and they would have had a thatched roof, so pretty compact by today's standards. Being there was 24 of them, this probably would have been quite a busy community, you know, lots of people, lots of animals. So you've got to take some time just to sit here and try and imagine what life would have been like back then. Probably quite difficult, I would imagine, but it's an interesting place to come and try and imagine what life would have been like back then. There's a lot of history steeped in this location, and all you have to do is look about, take a wander about, and try and imagine what it would have been like. But I want to try and capture some photographs of this place now, and the best way for me to do that is to walk back up towards Hookney Tor, get up into the elevation, and I can see the entire site. So, and while I'm up there, I'll be able to enjoy the sunset over this fantastic historical location. Well, I've come up to the top of Hookney Tor again, and I'm looking down there in Grimspound, and it looks fantastic. I've got the light from the setting sun there, just casting a warm glow across the landscape, and it just looks brilliant. But I've had a fantastic evening learning all about that settlement and how they might have lived their lives down there. Really interesting. I'm so glad I'm kind of expanding my horizons with Discovering Dartmoor, because I'd never come to a place like this before. I wouldn't have found it interesting, but now I've learned something about it, it just kind of opens my eyes to these things. It's really, this Discovering Dartmoor has been really, really good. But I'm just gonna sit here while that sun sets and watch the landscape change as the colours change and the light changes. Just a nice place to be, nice way to spend and finish the evening. I'll see you next time. My visit to Grimspound was a real eye-opener into the historical importance of Dartmoor. As Tom from the DPA said in the last episode, Dartmoor is a land that has been occupied by humans for thousands of years, and there are traces of that history all over Dartmoor. I'm really pleased that I visited Grimspound, as not only did I learn a little bit about its history, but also I photographed a location that I would never have considered before. One of the goals of Discovering Dartmoor journey was to become a better photographer of Dartmoor. So by capturing photographs of important locations, I'm getting closer to achieving that goal. But now let's go to Great Links Tour to continue my conversation with Josephine to learn about her personal connection with Dartmoor. Right, Josephine, we finally made it to the mighty Great Links Tour. It's some tour, isn't it?
It is some tour, yeah. This is my favourite tour, actually. It's big, you can't quite see it. It stretches on and
It goes
on.
all the way down there, doesn't it?
Fantastic joints, horizontal joints. It's got cracks, trig points, boundary stones, and it dominates the entire landscape. It's sort of the highest one around, but it's just like a tapestry of the rest of the country. It's just sort of laid out in front of you. It's an amazing place. I mean, at the moment we can hear skylarks, and it's
really nice. It's such a pleasant day. But I mean, you've got a long personal history with Dartmoor. What's your earliest memory of Dartmoor?
So it's always been a fascination, and I've been wondering why. And so when I was a kid, our family used to live in Devon, and we'd come down every Easter, Christmas and so on, and I'd always ask my parents, please, can we go to Dartmoor? Please. And they said, oh,
wish my kids would be like that.
And I just loved it, and it's very hard to say why I loved it. And I still can't find the words to describe how much I love Dartmoor, but it gets under your skin, and it's different things for different people, but it's that wonderful combination, a juxtaposition of it's benign and it's beautiful, it's dangerous, but it's warm and sunny, it can be snowy and icy, and it's all these things, but it has these amazing rocks which have a huge story for the whole area, and it's a wilderness. It's our own wilderness, and it can be, you can see no one all day, or you can see people and stop and
It becomes part of you, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
The more you look at it, the
gets
more
under your skin.
It gets under your skin. That's exactly it. And you've built your working life around Dartmoor.
I have,
as well,
yes. So before it was just the leisure. You know, we used to run a Venture Scout unit, and we'd climb on Dartmoor all the time, and yes, and then I would photograph it, and that's turned into books, and I'm now in a very happy place where I can, you know, my life and work is very much Dartmoor based.
So it's all intertwined. It's all one thing, isn't it?
It is, yes. And from now on, I want to do more walks on Dartmoor, and I want to show everybody else how wonderful this is and how unique it is, because it is unique.
It is unique. It's not always sunny.
It's not always.
It's not always
sunny. No. But actually, some of the best views of Dartmoor are the ones where you get the mizzle,
the mizzle,
the mist and mizzle, and the moody. You know, there's so many moods to Dartmoor, and it never ever is the same.
But we're going to have a look at Great Links Tor, because one of your areas of speciality is geology. Is that too high a summary, or? No,
it's so, you know, my first degree, if you like, had a lot of geology, and it's always been a passion. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to do a book on the geology of Dartmoor. So I spent 2 years researching it, and it's a world-class geological site. It's fascinating.
And you did all your own. We'll talk more about the book, but you did your own photography in that book as well, because you studied photography as well.
I did, yes, I did. I went back to college and did another sort of degree, if you like, in photography. So yeah, it sort of combines the both of them.
Yeah, you can photograph and understand it all at the same
hopefully.
time.
Yes, indeed.
Well, should we go and have a closer look at Great Links Tor and see what makes it so special?
Right, I can't wait to show you some of the crystals.
We'll come back to my conversation with Josephine a bit later in the episode, when we'll be having a chat about some of Dartmoor's fascinating geology. Next, we're going to head to Higher Tor, where I discover some interesting geological features myself. But before that, here's a message from me. I just want to quickly interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to say a big thanks to you, the people that are watching. Discovering Dartmoor for me is a passion project, not a commercial venture or a profit-making exercise. Everything that went into this series was produced by me. All the planning, research, writing, scouting, on-location filming, interviews, photography and editing was all done by just me. I even did my own hair, makeup and wardrobe. But the best bit of all that work is that I get to share Discovering Dartmoor with you on YouTube for free forever. So if you've got this far through the episode, it probably means you're enjoying it. And if you are, then it makes all that hard work worth it. But you might also be saying, Julian, how can I show my support for this wonderful series? Well, there are 3 simple things you can do that would mean the world to me, and that's like, comment and share. So if you are enjoying this episode, you'll find a like button just underneath the video. Press that, and then just below that, you can leave me a comment, preferably a nice one. But the most important and best thing you can do is to share the video. Let your friends, family and colleagues know about the series. Talk to them, WhatsApp them, share it in a Facebook group. However you do it, it would mean the world to me. But if you really like Discovering Dartmoor and you want to show your appreciation by buying me a cup of coffee, then that would be truly amazing. Just below the video, next to the like button, you'll find the thanks button. By clicking that, you can make a one-time donation that, in all likelihood, I will actually spend on coffee. I love coffee. As a landscape photographer that loves photographing sunrise, I depend on coffee. It keeps me going. But please do like, comment and share. Right, thank you for listening. Now let's get back to the episode. My journey to Higher Tor starts at the boundary stone at the northern end of the Oakhampton firing range. Fortunately for me, the water levels are low, so crossing the Blackavern Brook is relatively easy. A little bit further downstream and I come across another boundary stone. Just as I cross the bridge where the brook and the East Oakman River meet, Higher Tor comes into full view. It's a glorious evening as the clouds and light dance across the landscape. Well, I've come across another couple of boundary stones here. This one's marked BBP, which is Belstone Bound Parish, and this one is OPB, which I think is Oakhampton Parish Bound. Now, it's been really interesting actually walking along here from the car park. As you've seen, I walked by a few of these boundary stones. But until I did a little bit of research, spotted them on the OS maps and understood what they are, I'd never really given them much attention before. So it's quite interesting to find out what they're for. And I'm sure as I wander about Dartmoor, I'll spot more of them and I will stop to see what the lettering is. Anyway, got to get myself higher up that hill to Higher Tor. Well, here it is, Higher Tor. I have to say, it's quite the impressive tor. There's some really interesting geology there. Well, I have to say, this is an impressive looking tor, but the weather is also impressive at the moment. I'm on the dark side of the tor, if you like, but around the other side where the sun is setting, the light keeps coming in and out from a bank of clouds. So I'm going to go around there first and take a few pictures, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at the geology here. Well, I have to say that was pretty exciting around there. Got some really nice soft golden light from the setting sun. It's gone behind a bit of cloud just now, but it is going to come back, I reckon, just closer to sunset. So I will go back around there and take more pictures. But while we're waiting, why don't we go and take a look at the geology of this tor? Most of the interesting geology of this tor can be found on the eastern side. The distinct pattern of horizontal and vertical lines is known as jointing. The vertical joints were caused by the granite cooling and contracting. The horizontal joints were caused by a release of pressure caused by the erosion of layered rock over the granite. This process of chemical weathering took millions of years, but much of it didn't become visible until the last ice age. It's quite interesting photographing these rocks now that I know more about them, the way you've got these vertical and horizontal lines throughout the rock face. But what makes it super interesting to photograph is when the sun, which is just behind the bank of cloud at the moment, just drops down below some of that cloud and you get that nice warm light, and it just covers this face in warm, soft, golden light and catches the grass and all the textures in the rock. Makes for a really interesting photograph. And I'd say even more interesting now that I know just a little bit more about the geology. Well, isn't that a view? I'll never get bored of views like that on Dartmoor. Absolutely cracking. And I've had a cracking evening up here on Higher Tor. I've learned a little bit more about tors and the geology. I've managed to capture some nice landscape photographs with the light from the setting sun, and I've had a good walk. I mean, it's what Discovering Dartmoor is all about for me. But I'm going to head home. I shall see you in the next location, and I'm going to leave you with that cracking view. See you later. The geology of Dartmoor is incredibly interesting, and though most of my Dartmoor photographs featured that geology, I never really understood it. It just looked nice, so it's good to get a better understanding of what I'm photographing. But my geology knowledge is still very rudimentary, so for better understanding, let's rejoin my conversation with Josephine at Great Links Tor. Right, we're here underneath almost a shadow of Great Links Tor. I mean, this is quite an interesting tor, I guess, from a geology point of view. What can you tell me about it?
So it's got some classic characteristics. It's basically you're looking back in time with this. So the big vertical joints, they've been prized open by freeze thaw with the ice ages, but they were actually originated from when the magma, the granite magma, was cooling. About 270 million years ago, it started to cool, and these joints, as it became solid, these joints opened up, and then they got widened actually as this area of land that is now was covered in tropical forests. We were in a different part of the planet, and so you had tropical waters coming down through, acid rain and so on, and that would sort of dissolve some of the granite in these joints, and that's why they're a lot wider. So a lot of the shape of the granite tors was made whilst it was still underground.
Oh, really?
It is, I know.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And then, as soon as it was exposed, and everything, we had a few kilometres of material above us on top. Once that had been eroded off, all that weight lifting meant the granite could expand up because it had been pushed down for so long, and that's why you get these horizontal joints. It's a pressure release of joints, a bit like an accordion, if you like.
Oh, and what are the most sort of unique things, geologically speaking, about Dartmoor?
The rock here is nowhere else in the country.
Okay.
It was formed here with processes of crustal tensions and so on. We had a plate edge, a boundary quite close to us, and the movement of that generated all this molten magma underneath, and all the crustal tensions. Magma is actually less dense than everything around it, and so it will come up. And so it came up. And it's nowhere else in the country, as I say, is we had a sort of plate boundary above us as well. And so it had a sort of a unique chemistry, and the granite has certain crystals, but it has a certain combination of crystals with a few other elements in them as well. But you just don't get it anywhere else in the country. And then once with the glacial erosion afterwards, you've got this unique landscape of tors, shaped by the ice, and the sort of smooth pancake-like edges is from the ice as well, and freeze thaw, and it would split them apart.
And it's not just one type of rock either, is it? I mean,
no, you get all sorts. I mean, it's predominantly granite that pushed up and through, but everything around it that was baked and squished by the molten granite, so you get all the metamorphic rocks all around it. And in fact, quite a lot of West Dartmoor has gabbro, a dolerite, forming the tors, and you can see they're a quite different character. They're sharper, more sort of brittle, if you like. White tor is an example, and quite different. But the landscape around is pretty similar, and it's been shaped since then, since man's been around, with tin streaming and medieval tin streaming as well, because the hydrothermal fluids generated by the magma cooling went into all the surrounding rocks, and it created tin and copper and iron and silver and zinc, and amazing plethora of minerals which has been sort of exploited and used ever since.
Yeah, should we go and find another viewpoint and we'll have a chat about your books?
Yes, but we'll go around here. I want to show you something.
Oh, excellent! A bonus.
So here's a bit of granite that's come off. What I just want to show you. Because it's a bit of a clean edge here, so you can actually see what's inside. Because otherwise, it is just a grey rock, and I'm aware of that. But it's pretty interesting. So it's basically three main crystals that you get inside, and these big, milky white ones, that's feldspar.
Okay.
The sparkly black ones, that's mica or biotite mica. And it's always a smaller amount, but it's nearly always the feldspar and the quartz that makes up the granite. And this is a coarse-grained granite because you get these massive crystals. Sometimes the feldspars, you can get them the size of massive tennis balls. They can be absolutely enormous, or they can be really fine grained. It all depends on how quickly it cooled. It's beautiful. It's all crystals. It's just crystals.
And is this a type of granite that people would quarry and use? Or
not so much,
no.
Because it's very coarse like this. It can break apart more easily, and it tends to have more joints. So there's certain elements, there are certain areas of Dartmoor that has much finer grained granite, and it tends to be underneath the coarse stuff, and that's what they quarry more often than not. Haytor is a fantastic
Right.
example. Haytor, you've got Low Man there. If you look underneath, it's an entirely different sort of rock. It's sort of there's an undercut, and you see this rock, and it's got much fewer joints, and that's the one that they quarry behind Haytor.
Oh yeah, because there's quarries back there.
There
isn't
are,
there?
yeah, and so they can get big bits without joints in, and it quarries and cuts very well.
So I
whereas
guess
this doesn't cut so well.
So I guess for this reason, the Great Lakes Tors remain relatively
It's-
untouched
indeed,
for its life,
yeah.
which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yes,
Obviously, coming
yeah.
into it. Well, that's absolutely fascinating. Was that just lying about here?
It
then?
was. It was just on the ground, and I thought I just wanted to show you some of the
Oh,
crystals.
that's really interesting. Thank you.
No worries.
What a great conversation that was with Josephine. I learnt so much about the geology of Dartmoor in just a few minutes. We'll come back to Josephine later in the episode, where she'll tell us about the books that she's published in Dartmoor. But first, let's go to Ingra and visit one of Dartmoor's disused quarries. Ingra lies on the very western edge of Dartmoor. There are many ways to access Ingra, but I've decided to walk in from the car park on the road between Princetown and Yelverton. In the distance, I can see some of Dartmoor's most famous tors, like Great Staple Tor. The landscape is alive with the sound of birdsong. Even the local Dartmoor ponies seem to be enjoying a pleasant evening. My journey takes me on to the route of the old Plymouth and Dartmoor Railway. When the railway opened in 1823, it linked up many of the quarries in this part of Dartmoor, including Foggentor, Swelltor, and of course, Ingra Quarry. It's not long before Ingra is in sight, and I leave the track of the old railway line behind. Welcome to Ingra and another fascinating tour here on the western edge of Dartmoor. And of course, as you can see behind me, no stranger to the odd looking rock formation. But aside from the rock formations, of which there are plenty here, and I'm hoping to get some photographs, it is a beautiful evening here with probably just the right amount of cloud cover. There's one place I want to go and visit first. Just spotted this rock formation here. It's pretty photogenic and the light is quite nice now. So before I head down to where I was going to go, I think I'll get the camera out and take a picture. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Ingra Quarry, it's an old granite quarry. Why don't we go in and take a look? This might be a disused granite quarry, but there's something rather beautiful about it. The light is just catching the face here where they've been probably mining away. There's this beautiful tree here, right in the middle. So, you know, while it does have that industrial past, nature is going to gradually claiming it back. As you can see, the vegetation's growing through. So there is something a little bit beautiful about it. But there's one thing in particular I want to show you. This is what I wanted to show you here, this kind of stone structure here. There's one exactly over there as well where the camera is sitting. And what this structure was used for was a crane. So they had two cranes here, which I would imagine were lifting out the granite and then putting it on some sort of cart that would lead out down that small kind of V-shaped valley there where I came in to the quarry, because that's where the Plymouth and Dartmoor railway line is. And it carries on further up and it snakes up to two slightly larger quarries, that's Swelter, and there's one up by King's Tor there as well. So I would imagine back in the day this would have been a hub of activity, this area, with all the mining going on and the railway line. It's much quieter now. But The light is fading fast now. It's been really fascinating down here. It's getting dark, so I'm going to head back up to the, let's call it the surface. Let's make it sound grander than it is and take the final few photographs. Why don't you join me? Well, I thoroughly enjoyed taking those photographs of Ingra Tor. It's a fascinating location with lots of history. But the sun has now dipped behind a bank of cloud, but there's still a lot of colour in the sky. There's a glorious orange glow. So I'm just going to spend the rest of my time here watching that. Because sometimes you just got to come here, sit down and enjoy Dartmoor and what it can deliver. I'll see you in the next one. That was such a lovely evening to be up in Ingra Tor. In the next episode, I'll be visiting one of Ingra Tor's neighbouring tors, King's Tor. But just before we head back to Great Links Tor and learn about some of the amazing Dartmoor books that Josephine has authored, here's another quick message from me. I just want to interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to talk to you about the photography of Discovering Dartmoor. Throughout my Discovering Dartmoor journey, I've been capturing landscape photographs of the locations I have visited, some of which you will have already seen in this episode. And while I am very proud to share my Discovering Dartmoor landscape photographs in this video series, for me, the best way to view any photograph is in the printed format. We're all used to scrolling through photographs on social media platforms, but viewing a photograph in printed format is a totally different experience. It's a richer, more engaging experience. And that's why I'm incredibly excited to let you know that I've collated all 55 landscape photographs from the Discovering Dartmoor series and published them in this small softcover book, or as it's more commonly known these days, a zine. All 55 landscape photographs from the video series are included, from Arms Tor to Yes Tor and everything in between. The zine is printed professionally using high quality papers on both the cover and inner pages, ensuring my photographs are displayed in the best possible way. There's also an introduction written by myself and a foreword that has been written by Max Piper. Max has a deep connection with Dartmoor and is also the author of the book East Dartmoor's Lesser Known Tours, so I was delighted when he agreed to write the foreword for my publication. You'll also see Max feature in one of the Discovering Dartmoor episodes if you haven't seen him already. Landscape photography is my passion, and being able to publish this collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs is one of the highlights of producing this series. If you'd like to purchase a copy, then just head to discoveringdartmoor.com where you can order one today. Now, one final thing, if you're looking for something a bit bigger, such as a print to hang on your wall, then there is also a limited collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs to purchase as individual prints. Again, just head to discoveringdartmoor.com for more details. Thank you for your time, and now back to the episode. Well, this is a particularly nice little spot to have a sit down, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Great views, glorious sunshine. You could spend all day up here, couldn't you, really?
You really could, and you can see forever as well.
You can, it's absolutely brilliant. Now, one of the reasons I actually wanted to talk to you was this book here, the Dartmoor Tours Compendium, because I picked this up at my Dartmoor National Park offices. And for me, it's been absolutely core for my project, for this Discovering Dartmoor project, because it's given me an insight into not only finding new locations and tours, like for example Fir Tor over there, but also scratching the surface on the geology. What can you tell me about the book? How did it come about?
So yeah, so it was about 2014.
Yeah.
I started photographing the tours. I love monochrome photography. I started photographing them in black and white, and then I thought, I think I want to photograph all of them. Why not? So I set about doing that, and then I started reading about them, and I thought there's so much of interest around the tours. I mean, I looked at books, you know, Crossing and High Dartmoor by Hemery and Butler's Antiquities books, and they're brilliant books. And I thought I'd love to gather all the information about each tour with photographs. I thought, oh, I'll do a book. That's what I'm going to do.
No easy undertaking, though, is it, a book?
Yeah. So I mean, I did it, and I had a very clear picture in my mind as to what it was going to look like. I wanted a double-page spread. I love information. Science and art are kind of hand in hand for me, if you like. So I wanted, fact files, accurate information, but also beautiful photographs and where to find everything. So I spent a lot of time reading and researching and then travelling all the tours, many times in many cases, because, you would go there and then come back and read a bit more. It's like, oh, I missed that one. Go back, find some, find this really interesting feature, and then photograph it again and come back. And so it took a few years, but so I put it together and I decided to publish myself when a book publisher said, well, you're only going to sell 400, it's not worth it.
And have you sold more than 400? You sold more
I have.
Yes. That's good.
Yes,
And how would you describe the book? Is it a reference guide? Is it?
Well, it's kind of its own thing. I mean, I was inspired by the book of Dartmoor Stone by
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Woods, and still am. And it's a beautiful book, and I love the square, more or less a square format. And I wanted a double-page spread for each tour, and it's alphabetical, so you can dip in and out.
Yeah.
It's not a sort of start-to-finish kind of book. It's something that's there. You think, where shall we go? Oh, I fancy that sort of area. Look up the tour, find out what's interesting around it.
Well, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, you can jot down a few
it,
GPS points, and then off you go. So it's designed to inspire walks.
Yeah.
Not tell you where to go, because one of the joys of Dartmoor is just there's
It's
very
just a
few
wandering
tracks.
about,
You
isn't it?
wander,
Yeah.
so you've got to know what you're doing up to a point. But it's just to get people to go out there and have a look and just explore all this amazing stuff.
It's a wonderful book.
Yeah, I'm
But
glad.
once is normally enough for most authors. But
They say everyone's got one book inside them, haven't they?
Yeah, but you've done more than one now,
So I
haven't
have,
you?
yeah. So the National Park loved the book,
Yeah.
and they've been very, very supportive. But they asked me after that. They asked me to do a new official visitor guide for
Right.
the Dartmoor National Park.
Okay.
It's a taster menu
Yeah.
of Dartmoor, so it covers a little bit about where the rocks came from, but it's also habitats,
wildlife, yeah.
folklore, some of the stories. But it's quite sort of factual, but with some photographs, mainly in colour, just to show you the kind of things that you can expect to find there. And it's a taster menu for you to go out and explore more.
Excellent. And you went again?
I went again. So I've always had a passion for geology. So I spent 2 years reading scientific papers.
You do love a project, don't you?
I do.
You love a level of commitment.
And this is the result of it. So the geology of Dartmoor.
Yeah.
So the last book that covered geology of Dartmoor was in 1972. Brilliant book by Perkins, but it was with ink drawings, and I just thought there's so much more now that we can talk about and we can show. I can do the photographs for it, so I do all the layout, absolutely all of it.
Wow, I mean that's amazing.
I get people to edit, to read through, because you always read what you want to read when you've written it yourself. But see, what I really wanted was so that the area's got loads of different rocks, loads of different crystals and things, and when you and clay, absolutely.
Isn't it?
When you look up a picture of, let's say, look up tourmaline or quartz or something, and in a book or online, you will always get a photograph of the world's most beautiful example that dug out of somewhere in South America, and you think, I'm not going to. What's it look like here? That's what I want to know. So I deliberately did photographs of the rocks and the crystals as you see them in the rock.
Yeah.
And so it's very much specific. This is what it looks like out in the field, so you can understand what you're seeing.
So I guess this makes
landscape.
this book quite accessible as well, so people can read up about it, learn a little bit about it, and then actually go and find practical examples on Dartmoor.
So you can go out and it just gives you information about certain areas and what to look for and to read that landscape.
Geology doesn't have to be complicated. It's accessible.
Absolutely,
to everyone.
it's for anybody who. I've done it so it can appeal to anybody who might look at the ground and see some sparkles, to people who are geologists but don't necessarily know what's going on in this particular area, and hopefully, it is accessible to all. But it's accurate, and it's got all the depth of information and research in there too.
You got any more books planned, or?
There might be.
Might be. Excellent. Well, we'll just leave it at that.
At the moment, I'm just finishing off a geology map of Devon and Cornwall. Basically, it follows the whole Cornubian batholith. Try and say that 3 times really quickly. That is all the granite that you see that pops out throughout the whole of the southwest. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. But there will be another book at some point.
So these books, they're available to to buy?
Oh yes, of course. So they're in the visitor centres. They're
Yep.
in all the bookshops all around Dartmoor. But if you if you go on my website,
Yep, I'll put the address at,
okay,
at the
cool.
bottom for you.
That you can buy them directly from me, and you get 10% off. So a bit of a bargain.
That's
really.
it. And you've got lots of other little interesting products in
I
there as
do
well. You've
sort
got
of
some maps and
yeah,
stuff.
infographics. I've a list of the tours. I've got
Yeah.
a tours map.
That's a fantastic map. That
So people, you know, in other parts of the country,
Yeah.
you get Munros and Wainwrights
Yeah.
and Corbetts and so on. There isn't one for Dartmoor, and so I've done this tours map of Dartmoor where you can tick off each one. It's beautiful.
Sounds like I could spend a bit of money on your website then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully people will visit there, because like I say,
Well,
these
thank you,
books are
yes.
brilliant, and I really, it's a bit of a Bible of Dartmoor for me. This has been absolutely invaluable
Oh, I'm
for
so
me.
glad.
So thank you so much for
Oh,
that.
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
I just had the best day with Josephine. It was a beautiful day for a walk, and a visit to Great Links Tour with her was particularly special. And it was great to learn so much from her. Of course, you too can benefit from Josephine's extensive knowledge of Dartmoor's geology by buying her excellent books. The Dartmoor Tours Compendium has been like a Dartmoor Bible for me, so I can't recommend it enough. So please take some time to visit her website. Now, on to the last location of this episode, and time for something a little different as I share one of Dartmoor's most famous ghost stories. Locations in Dartmoor that start with the letter J are rare, but perhaps the most well known is Jay's Grave. It's located just northwest of Houndtor, and you can find it marked on most maps. But what is Jay's Grave? The grave is apparently where Kitty Jay, a young lady of the 18th century, is laid to rest after she committed suicide. Like a great many of the tales told about Dartmoor, the story of Kitty Jay is surrounded in folklore and ghost stories. While accounts do vary, the core of the story is that Kitty Jay was a young, unmarried housemaid who was snubbed by her lover. Either the lad's family did not approve, or she fell pregnant, or both. Unfortunately, as was to the attitudes back then, once Kitty's reputation or situation became known, life became very difficult for her, and she committed suicide by hanging herself. But because she committed suicide, she wasn't allowed to be buried in a church ground, so she was placed in a grave by some crossroads. This was to prevent her from returning to haunt local residents. It wasn't until the 1960s though that her grave became a bit of a tourist attraction. Given the backstory of poor Miss Kitty Jay, all sorts of stories of ghost sightings and strange goings on have been reported over the years. One such tale is how there are always fresh flowers in the grave. No one knows who puts them there or why. But that's one tale I can say isn't true, having visited the grave a couple of times and seen it without any flowers. Many poems and songs have been written about Kitty Jay, and the story continues to inspire artists today. Current day musicians like Devon Bourne and Seth Lakeman have written songs about poor Kitty Jay. But there's one poem about Kitty Jay that caught my eye. Where have you been all night, Kitty Jay, Kitty Jay? Where have you been all night, oh Kitty Jay? I've been tucked up nice and warm with young Harry at the farm, and young Harry promised to marry me, his charming Kitty Jay. Oh, don't put your trust in men, Kitty Jay, Kitty Jay. Oh, don't put your trust in men, dear Kitty Jay. For he's changed his mind since then, and you will not see him again. So young Harry never will marry you, my charming Kitty Jay. What a dastard to betray Kitty Jay, Kitty Jay. What a dastard to betray poor Kitty Jay. Now this fills her with dismay, 'cause she's in the family way, and young Harry never will marry her, oh wretched Kitty Jay. You've been taken for a ride, Kitty Jay, Kitty Jay. You've been taken for a ride, poor Kitty Jay. Since I'm not to be a bride, I'll resort to suicide, 'cause young Harry never will marry me, his lovesick Kitty Jay. She was buried on the hill, Kitty Jay, Kitty Jay. She is buried on the hill, is Kitty Jay. She lies sleeping on the hill, 'mong the flowers that blossom still. So take pity now upon Kitty, young and foolish Kitty Jay. There you have it, the story of Kitty Jay. Now, if you find yourself nearby, why not take a look, leave an offering, or see if there are any flowers there. Or, if you are feeling brave, drive by at night to see if you can see the ghost. Just before I leave Jay's Grave, I just want to give a shout out to Rob Hayward, who kindly let me read text from his dad's book, Dartmoor 365 by John Hayward. This book is amazing. It divides Dartmoor up into 365 squares, one for each square mile of Dartmoor, and puts a point of interest in it. So there's all sorts of things about history, geology, tales, stories, all sorts, and packed full of wonderful illustrations as well. It really is an invaluable resource, and one that I've enjoyed using myself on my Discovering Dartmoor journey. And if you want to find out more about John and this book, there's a webpage, dartmoor365.org. And if you want to get involved in an active community of people who use Dartmoor 365 book, check out Facebook and search for Dartmoor 365. You'll find a really active and vibrant group there of people using this book and sharing their stories and adventures. But yes, please do pick up a copy of this book. It's excellent. Dartmoor 365 by John Haywood, and thanks again, Rob. I don't think I'm going to win any awards for my storytelling skills, but I hope you enjoyed learning about poor old Kitty J. Anyway, thank you for watching episode 2, but there's a lot to look forward to in episode 3, including I find a bit of London Bridge, I tell you a story about a giant and cream teas, I look at some of Dartmoor's engineering marvels, and I chat to Dartmoor's daughter, Emma Kunis. But before I go, if you want to support Discovering Dartmoor, remember the best way you can do so is by clicking that like button, leaving a comment and sharing the video. It would mean the world to me if you told everyone you know about this series. And remember to check out discoveringdartmoor.com, where you can order the Discovering Dartmoor zine or order prints to hang on your wall. You'll also find information on the talk that I've written about the photography and film production of Discovering Dartmoor. So if you have a camera club or a group that would like to know even more about this series, then there's a contact form there as well. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. That's all from episode 2. I'll see you for episode 3 of Discovering Dartmoor.